welcome back to the Tansson Talks show. I always appreciate your support. I'm Brandon, the host of the show, and I'm just so excited to bring you today's episode with my guest here today, David. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah. So, first of all, how are you doing today, David?
I'm doing swell today.
That,
Can't complain at all.
that is amazing to hear. I hope that your semester for fall 2024 is off to a great start.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just so excited to have you on the podcast and to catch up with you. And so before we get started, are you able to go ahead and introduce yourself for those watching or listening here today?
Yes, my name is David Morgan. I am a mechanical engineering student with a history minor as well as a African American Studies minor studying at Oldham University. I am a part of the Trio McNair program. We were introduced to undergrad research as well as helping us get into graduate school, which helps us from providing funding as well as getting that experience to help us look the part for grad school. Some of the things I've currently done so far is that I have participated in an internship at the National Air and Space Museum. Thank you. And I've also gotten my document published to the AIAA database on the history of the 30 by 60 foot wind tunnel, which in this case, everyone, is basically a wind tunnel that NASA previously owned and used to work to test aircraft going from the Apollo era to also World War II, as well as modern day aircraft. In addition to this, I am also involved in the National Society of Black Engineers, and I hope to do diversity, equity, and inclusion research this current semester, kind of focusing on what I did at one of my previous camps for the Tuskegee Airmen to look at middle school students and figure out uh, if this programming is helping them in the way that it should and giving them opportunity to see what they can do if they continue their education and want to pursue degrees such as engineering.
First of all, I have to say that I absolutely just love everything that you are doing, David.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting to hear that. I mean, that one that you're doing just so much amazing, amazing work, but that one that you are published before even, finishing out undergrad with your work, and that you're doing just such the important work of, of bringing the African American history aspect into, your mechanical engineering background.
Yes, it's a wonderful experience. I like where I'm applying my minors, both for history and African American studies, to both my research that I've completed so far. I'm still working on the planning and organization stages for this current research with diversity in in the STEM field, but it's off to a great start so far. I've been communicating with such faculty who are very interested in my work and who want to continue helping me grow my research so that then we can figure out what can we do to improve programs, but also keep programs like the Tuskegee Airmen Summer Camp alive for individuals to complete. Uh, it's really great program that not only introduces them to engineering, but also what's it like in the aerospace industry, and also even like the legacy of people like the Tuskegee Airmen on how they broke barriers and basically inspired others to increase diversity in the STEM field and how it's such an important tool to us as a nation.
I mean, I couldn't have worded that better, myself. And I love how you speak about even just the legacy of even breaking barriers. I mean, it's just so important, and I think not represented. I mean, enough in how important it is to not just the field, but I mean, even to American history as well.
Yes, it's like even with my family, I love going to this camp because my family was also involved in the Tuskegee Airmen on both sides. So it's just a dream come true for me. Like essentially, I guess to also give back to the chapter um, because I've also received funding for scholarships and my family's just a deep connection with them. So I hope to continue doing that in the future. in whatever way I'm able to.
I'm just so love that you're able to, I mean, to give back, but then also give your own contributions as well, and Liza, and continue that legacy. And so I do have to ask, so like, what really first brought you into not just the STEM field, but also learning the African American history part as well.
Well, well, bringing back to the STEM field, that kind of goes back to when I was very little, back, way back in the day. So essentially, one of my first things that I did was a biplane ride, and as a little toddler, and when when I was seeing that and being there, I was interested in like how the engine moved and the parts that were working while we were on that biplane ride. So that's kind of like just the the intro into why I wanted to be in the STEM field, such as engineering. It kind of further influenced during my time as uh, a camp a camper at an aerospace camp at the Hampton Aerospace Museum when I was about in elementary school, and that really interested me in the aerospace field, particularly like how testing works, looking at just the basic forces of flight, but also being able to tour the museum. So that's kind of what got my interest into aerospace history is at that summer camp. So that was really influential to me, and kind of what got me into the African American studies aspect is I would say that I was involved in um, a class in high school. So now we're going into high school years, and basically throughout my time in African American studies class, I felt like I want to continue this down the road in college. And so that's kind of what influenced me to get a African American Studies minor, but a little bit kind of afterwards because I was still debating on getting it if I was able to even uh, do this and engineering while also completing my history minor. Uh, but going back to high school, what also got me interested in aerospace history was taking aerospace technology courses where we learned further about the generosities and the accomplishments of so many characters throughout the ages that have influenced the technology that we have today, such as the Wright brothers, uh, Langley, which is named after one of the Air Force bases that we have, and even people such as like Katherine Johnson. I think she was also what kind of influenced me to want to go into African American studies because I learned about her during my time in middle school, and she even went to what I just learned about like a little bit a while ago was that she was even at my church uh, that I sang at. So it was just, I think those are some of the factors that kind of introduced me to wanting to be involved in the history field as well as the African American Studies field. I could also say with the Tuskegee Airmen chapter that I'm involved with, my family's history with them, that is like also a big component of why I wanted to do African American Studies while my time during school, as well as it's kind of almost like the final thing. But my dad knew Mae Jemison. They went to high school together, and so he told me, and I also learned this through the web as well, that she had her degree in engineering, but she also did kind of like a minor in African American studies as well. So it was an interesting path that I saw her take, and I was like, I think I kind of want to do also this path as well. So that's also what influenced me to do African American studies at Old Dominion University.
I love that. Yeah, and I did actually want to, I mean, to dive into that. And there's so many things I think I could dive in and ask about, from the fact that Katherine Johnson had, been at the church that that you sang at, to your family connections and everything in between. But I guess I'll start off by asking, so since you mentioned that in high school you were taking courses like in aerospace and aviation and wanting to learn more about that. Is that was at the Denby High School Aviation Academy?
Yes, that is correct. And it was before they moved it to just the main campus. That we used to be off site at the Newport News Williamsburg Airport, so it just gave us it was just so interesting being there because you also learned history about the aviation of Newport News by being at that airport. We were actually located in a historic was one of the first buildings at the airport. It was the first tower that was at the airport as well. So there was history behind the building that our school was at as well, which I was very interested in uh, and learning about, and I guess wanting to like dig a little deeper. I didn't get to do that much in high school, but it was just very interesting seeing kind of like that applying when I'm also living in a piece of history in the like for the area.
And how cool was that? I mean, to study in such a historical spot, and not just to study aviation, but to be at what used to be the actual, main airport building before they built their newer building.
It was just amazing to me. Like it's just, I guess it was amazement, wonder, and also I guess a little bit of gratitude for the people that like came before, and because without this we wouldn't have the airport that we have today, being able to take you around the world and around the nation. And but even with this airport, you have the growth of different companies that are now based there, such as one of their airplane contracting companies that does a little bit of testing and also uh, maintenance and trains people on maintenance of aircraft. And now even college students can get internships while over there at the airport. So it's just kind of wonderful and how much that the airport has contributed to not only the area but also the aerospace industry. And even though our school is not there anymore, they're um, still providing opportunities for undergrad students, and they're still working a little bit in connection with Denby Aviation Academy, is what I was told.
And have you been able to have a chance to visit since the time that you graduated?
Yes, so I just recently actually visited this past summer. Uh, it's kind of different though because we're not at the airport anymore. So during my time in high school, actually, they were in the stages of moving the campus to the main campus, uh, and I was kind of just seeing it through a virtual lens. But so when actually going back to it and um, seeing what they're doing and how they're still doing like some of the similar classes was kind of amazing to me. And even like 2 years prior, I got to also see the Concorde that I got to finish as a well that I didn't get that our group didn't get to finish, but we were almost done with completed at the school. So basically, NASA had donated to us a Concorde model, which basically the Concorde is a supersonic um, passenger aircraft. We were trying to basically see if we could do passenger air travel, but see if we can go faster than the speed of sound to get us to places quicker. And I guess it was more how do I say convenient. However, there was like some different things like with the Conquer being too loud, which kind of like stopped the program. But this was like one of their basically it's a wind tunnel model, and they tested inside of the tunnel to see uh, its effects while it basically like simulates flight in the wind tunnel. So you can see how much lift is it getting, what is the drag ratio like, and um, what can be improved in the aircraft when we're looking at it being tested in the wind tunnel. You can even look at the stability and how it if it's like a little bit unstable in the simulated flight. But we kind of worked. Our thing was on restoring this piece of history and refurbishing it. So I gained a lot of shop skills such as sanding, um, how to use epoxy resin, uh, and how to use some of the shop tools in order to like do a little bit of using some of the screws that were provided to us in the shop in order to put the model back together into the way it's supposed to be. Uh, and now I believe what I was told is that it's now given to back to NASA Langley for them to, I guess, place in one of their facilities. So it was just great that I got to do that opportunity and kind of seeing how history and aerospace also connects and a little bit of the restoration side. I think that's what interests me a little bit to the restoration side of aircraft, which I'm still interested in this day. Uh, and it'd be great if I could get to do such an opportunity um, after undergrad. So maybe like looking into getting my A&P license somewhere down the line so I can work on aircraft restoration.
That is astonishing. I mean, that you're able to then. How does it feel? I mean, and to even be a part of that and understand the history, you know, and especially like with restoration, because I feel like that ties just directly into both the engineering side of things, but then also, your history focus and and some of the studies. And so, I guess a question for you I would have is that, so at what point did you realize that you could really merge both your interest in in studying the actual aerospace and mechanical engineering alongside the history aspect of it? Because I know you mentioned that you've had both interests for a while, but at what point did it realize, hey, I can use those together?
I think I truly saw it during, I guess it started during the archives that I did a little bit. It wasn't like truly there, but like I got to look at some of the old aerospace research papers and analyze from that perspective. And so, and that kind of also helps with the engineering field is looking back at that previous research and seeing how we can improve upon it, or even building off of it. Uh, that data is actually going to help us so we can create these new technologies to help the world. And so that's kind of looking at that lens is actually when I started to learn. But I think when I truly learned how history and engineering combined together was throughout my time at the internship. Like actually seeing it in person was just very mind-boggling to me, and also very making me very ecstatic. So I got to see how they use 3D modeling in a way to preserve aircraft, but also even they use 3D modeling to scan artifacts as well, so they can create exhibits to display them. And so that some of those engineering skills that you gain with 3D modeling can uh, resonate in the history field and also the museum field. Some of those engineering aspects kind of resonate with aircraft restoration. So we even at the museum, they actually have someone who went to Virginia Tech and got his aerospace engineering degree, and now he's working on restoring aircraft at the museum. So I even got to see all the books. He has the same books as I have as a mechanical engineer. And it's even on his desk at the museum to this day. Uh, and so he got to show me like kind of like the job that he does and how sometimes some of the things can apply back to what he's doing, and also his journey on getting there from being studying aerospace engineering to getting to the museum. And so, and that's kind of like what still inspires me to want to pursue this aspect of combining both aerospace and history together a little bit after engineering or even during engineering.
I mean, I truly am just so astonished with, like I said, the work that you're doing and the connections of people that you're able to meet, like you're saying, like the one graduate from from Virginia Tech, that they're able to, I mean, to do that and be a part of that process. And so, how does it feel for you being able to meet some of these people who are sort of doing like in your eyes like these these dream jobs, and especially people who have been so monumental to this field?
It's just an out of this world experience for me. And I didn't get to formally talk with the person who was doing the How Things Fly gallery at the museum, which is going to be, I believe it's going to be done by 2026. That's the other side of the museum that they're still working on. But he actually was a professor at the University of Maryland and also got his, I believe, his master's degree in aeronautical engineering, and has even produced aeronautical engineering textbooks. So that seeing that actually, that's kind of a position I want to be interested in. He's a curator at the museum, so he's able to like to he helps him overseeing the exhibit being made, but also he has to research the history of the aircraft, and he has to kind of know that, and that's something that resonates with me as well. And I'm kind of hoping that will be a similar position that I'm in the future as well. And so just talking with it wasn't him, but it was talking with the person that he had trained to get into that certain position. So it was another curator that that individual had trained. And so he knew a lot about the history of NASA Langley, um, Even the curator, he actually got a piece of the wind tunnel, and it's now even posted up at the National Air and Space Museum. It was the one of the fans that was used in the 30 by 60 foot wind tunnel. He was able to grab that piece before because NASA Langley was offering them to give them some of their materials that they had at the wind tunnel. So he went in there to look. Basically, the previous curator, went over there to look at the wind tunnel fan and figure out which one that he wanted and some other pieces. So he grabbed whatever that the museum was able to hold and that was able to help audiences understand about aerospace history. And so he brought that back. They restored it, and now it's here for future generations to view and understand about the monumental role that this wind tunnel has played. He even they even grabbed the X-43 blended wing body that basically ODU had tested during their time when they were part of their wind tunnel program when they were at NASA Langley. So that's really cool too. Like, because I got to look at it during my archival internship at the library, but actually being able to uh, see it being in a museum now, because that was one of my questions that I posed. I was like, what happened to this aircraft? I heard about the Air Force getting one of the models and flying it out, but there was other models that ODU had tested, and I was trying to figure out what happened to everything. So it was good to know that one of them is actually being preserved at the museum, um, and it's just I'm glad that everyone can enjoy it, and I'm glad that I was able to see it because that was ODU tested that aircraft, so it's just amazing to see it, being in a prestigious place like that, but also being preserved for future generations.
I mean, absolutely. And I have a two-part question for you, to follow up to that. So one, how does it feel to be, a student at a university that help be a part of this history that helped, restore and put this, wind tunnel to completion? But then also, how was it for you as a student getting up to this point, like going from, the beginnings of freshman year, just starting off at ODU, and up to now, where you have a yeah uh, historical research paper that you not just completed, but presented and is published. I mean, how was that whole trajectory for you and being a part of this modern history now?
It's, I guess, with when it comes to the journey, I just, you know, for a little bit, I thought I wasn't going to be able to even intern at the museum at one point, but through people telling me to apply again and me just not giving up, essentially, just applying like almost every year, I was eventually able to obtain the position. And I guess the archives at one point I wasn't even knowing that they had an opportunity to do this aerospace history. I kind of just was like, well, I need a class for my history minor. Uh, I see an internship as an easier, more flexible way to get one, so I just went in there. But then when she was asking me what my interests were, my coordinator, she she asked like, what do you like to study in history? So I told her I'm a really big aerospace enthusiast. I'm also studying that as my major concentration, and I just like to see if you have anything in your collection that I could look at. I also like some Civil War history, but more with the if they had anything with engineering wise as well, like the USS Monitor, but they didn't really have too much of that. So and then also I got the option of looking at railroad history. I asked them if they had any of that, which they also didn't have as much either. But that was kind of like my top one anyway, was the aerospace history one. So with that, she gave the collection to me, and that just gave me the opportunity to kind of get where I am now. It's just me by asking that question to her. Do you have this in your collection? And also, I guess a little bit with taking the initiative, because there could have been other classes that I did, but the internship kind of seemed the most interesting to me, and so I was just like, well, let me just see what this is like. So I guess taking that initiative, getting your feet wet in the water, and just taking that dive right in afterwards is kind of what got me to where I am today. And even with my changing interests, I guess, or evolving interests, because at first I wanted to see if I could do aerospace archaeology. I still am interested in it, but it um, through telling people about that, it kind of got me to the positions I am today. Um, and hopefully, I guess down the line, if it would be great if I could do a aerospace archaeology uh, experience, but if I can't, I know I'm glad I was able to do this, which is almost as close to that opportunity, being a aerospace historian or doing something with aerospace preservation. I hope that answered all your questions. Feel free to ask me some follow ups.
Oh yeah, I absolutely will. And so yeah, I mean, one, I'm so glad that you were even able to have that opportunity, and I mean to be able to do research, to go into the archives, to learn more about this history. I mean, what did this mean to you personally? I mean, I know you spoke a bit about all the connections, especially with your personal familial connections, like with all the way back to the Tuskegee Airmen, but but how did it feel for you being able to dive through this history, yourself, and to help uncover it? And I mean, yeah, I'm just so intrigued by this.
Yeah, it was a kind of a shock to me that ODU had this just big affiliation with NASA Langley. Like I knew about it because they had programs, and some of the professors studied at NASA Langley and came and taught, but I didn't know such the. I just thought I was just going in there just to look at like some of like the programs that they did, like little programs here and there, and some of their research projects. But after actually going really into it, it's just like, wow, they actually made a really big contribution. And it was like looking at the time period too, because they weren't just also working on the wind tunnel; they were working on the monorail as well. So they were going through this big stage of like interesting projects and programs that are just kind of taken for granted now a little bit. And the guy who was able to start the program, when I was talking to my professor, he was um, he was a war veteran, but he was a pilot, and so but he also had his background in engineering. So being able to also do both those things, it was interesting learning about the person. And he was also the dean, used to be the dean for the College of Engineering. So he was the one who really helped in catapulting that program. And without him, we kind of wouldn't be where we are today with some of our other engineering programs. And even learning about the time at even the program at Wobbs Island, he helped and found in funding that program as well. Uh, it's the Virginia Spaceport Authority program that's at Wobbs. So that uh, engineering dean not only did the wind tunnel stuff, but he also helped in doing that program that's at the Spaceport Authority. So it's just crazy just to learn about it, and when talking and doing interviews just to gain more of an understanding of what's going on, it's just crazy that ODU just had this much contributions to the, I guess, to the universe. The program had such contributions to making the university as a whole stand out. Uh, and hopefully we can get back to a similar instance of that time. Um, I know we're kind of doing similar things now. We're doing testing for NASA, but you know, hopefully we can get back to like that a similar period. That would just be, you know, because we essentially the university was put on the map because we were even working with NASCAR. Like we were we were testing actual real NASCARs at NASA Langley, and they were paying us to test their vehicles. Just let it like sink in from like what like NASCAR. That's that's a big name. That's a big wig right there. And even looking at people such as Volvo, we even tested for them as well. So it just amazes me that we had this, and it even is kind of what influenced our previous automotive program. Even though we don't have that anymore as a major and as a bigger program, it was cool like looking to see how they intertwine that into the wind tunnel. Uh, You had some of the automotive engineers doing their testing there, but you've had opportunities for people doing internships and research for other types of engineering, which were they had electrical engineers working there, you had aerospace engineers working there, so you had engineers in the department from kind of all walks of life, helping maintain that wind tunnel, and so it just kind of like inspired me and wanting to complete also aerospace research or continue down that path or a similar path in completing engineering research.
Yeah, and I mean, adding on to what you were saying, like, yeah, I'm so glad that that you are so familiar with even ODU's history in it, and I think I'm surprised that it hasn't gotten as much attention as I feel like it should. And like for one of the internships I had a couple of years ago is that I was doing some personal research on like ODU's involvement in some of these fields, and I mean especially like their part in, like you're saying, the Virginia Spaceport Authority, but then also, they're also a key member of like the Virginia Space Grant Consortium and the Virginia Institute for Spaceflight and Autonomy, and
And
so
the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronauts, like they are our college chapters there, but we also are really in conjunction with the Hampton Roads chapter. So, and they've even produced research at the wind tunnel for other AIAA conferences. So that is really cool. And we even worked with Virginia Tech on we were trying to do a Viper program, which was expanding essentially the automotive program.
and I guess going into that is ODU even where you wanted to initially go? Like, what drove you to even like apply for ODU to begin with?
Well, it was a little bit of the diversity aspect. It was also the convenience, looking at the alumni that have been there, but also with the history of the university when it came to aviation and aerospace history. I even like recently learned they used to have a aviation maintenance program at Oldham University. It was decades and decades ago, but like they actually are like a key player when it comes to the aerospace industry. And so that's kind of what drove me to come here is through that. How many like pioneering aspects that the university has done, and even the closeness that it has to NASA Langley. Like they're not that we're not that far from there. We even have tours over there with our AIAA organization. So I saw that as an opportunity for me to want to apply to Oldham University, just because of who we work with, the different facilities that we are near, because we're even near like the Navy base, so we do a lot of our engineers are sent over there. We're also near the shipyard, so you're kind of like in this whole cluster of different opportunities if you want to go in different routes of engineering. You don't just have to do aerospace, but you can also do marine technology, looking at that field. Uh, you also have the construction side. You have many construction companies looking for interns from Old Dominion. And so it's just you have a plethora of different companies wanting to grab people essentially. So that's also kind of why I came, because there's so many different companies surrounding ODU's campus, um, and also the rich aerospace part, which was essentially the biggest portion I would believe of the that kind of drove me to come.
Yeah, I certainly feel like we're in such close proximity to so many like amazing STEM hubs. Like I feel like Hampton Roads. While we may be known for, of course, a lot of the historical aspects of it, such as we have the historical triangle right here, with like Williamsburg, James City County, and York County. But you also have so many other like amazing aspects, like Cannon, Virginia is here, Jefferson Lab. We have so many amazing STEM hubs and so much history, and so I feel like this is just like almost like the perfect area for you, since you're combining STEM and history as well.
Yeah, it's just it just blows my mind of like all the different opportunities that we have at the university.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like I said that, that we have so many different resources here, and especially for you as a, ODU student, like. like clearly based off of just the resume and the amount of things that you said that you've done, like I can see that you've taken full advantage of every resource, in this area and then some.
Yes, I have tried my hardest to uh, get involved with the university, but also put my name out there to employers um, when in the time that I could, essentially, and just grow myself not only for a school aspect, but also extracurricular wise and also work development wise.
But that's just so great that you've been able to do that. And shifting gears just a little bit, so I know that, of course, being a senior now, that you've done, of course, a lot of hard work, not just with, your, of course, your very important, aerospace and aviation work, but but even in your personal life. So, like, what are some of the things that you have been like up to throughout your college journey thus far, on the more personal side when you're not doing all your research?
Well, I love to. Some of my hobbies include I like to cook. I also love to um, draw. Some of the time, when the time that I could play video games, but it's kind of been a minute since I played a little bit due to college. Also, a little bit on my downtime, I like to watch and also read graphic novels, especially Marvel and DC comics. I also love to go to historical sites as in addition to the museums, and I also like bowling. Bowling is really I was on the bowling team in high school, and so in the time that I can, I like doing bowling. You know, it's just a very nice thing, a sport of mine that I liked playing in high school, and I like to continue that when I'm doing undergrad. I still am, even though we don't have a bowling club, but like on the downtime, that's one of my hobbies as well. Uh, Being able to do that, and also looking at documentaries is like I love that stuff. I know it's kind of like weird to some like students. It's like looking at that stuff instead of like some other things, but yeah, I just kind of like that when I was a kid. So um, even though I looked at the regular TV shows and kid shows, I also love looking at history documentaries. So I still that's one of my hobbies that I like to do as well. So that's kind of like with that history aspect, and that's also kind of like what got me interested was looking at stuff like that. One of them is that they actually were trying to take a airplane that was encapsulated in ice, uh, and so they were trying to figure out how to take it out of there, and also complete preservation efforts. So that's kind of what also got me interested in aerospace preservation was with that project. So that was amazing to me looking at that and kind of got me wanting to do that field in the future. It's just looking at things like that.
So truly, for you, there is a true power in media.
Yes, yes. Good old History Channel.
And would you say that? I mean, since you just mentioned that helped sort of set the course for you, and even some of the things that you do now. So so would you say that that really helped guide and push you as to to where you wanted to end up, and even where you are now?
Yeah, I would say like that hobby of mine is kind of what you know put me at the point to where I am with when it comes to that internship at the Air and Space Museum, um, and also with without being at the Hampton Air and Space Museum, or even doing those hobbies when I was a kid. I guess I would have gone like a different route, but I guess with that stuff, and also even my grandfather taking me to different historical sites. That's kind of also why I'm interested. Is with my grandfather, he has a background in history, and he's been able to take me to different places, and so with that, that's kind of the foundation of what's got me there to the place I am today. Is family and them giving me these experiences and exposing me to these different opportunities and wanting to grow my education.
Well, I just so love that. I mean, that your family has such a great, I mean, influence on not just you as a person, but also to what you do, academically, professionally, and then even I'd presume to even how you present yourself in just such the professional manner.
Yes, with they really molded me kind of into the person that I am. Like like they're supposed to. Like they're your grandparents and they're your parents, so they want you to do great in the world, and they want you to be great. So they try to do as much as they can to provide you with the opportunities that they probably didn't have when they were children. Because during the time when my grandparents grew up, they didn't like, especially my grandmother. She didn't have the same opportunities in education. Well, it took her more work to get there because of some of the things back then that were happening, that were that are kind of uncommon like today. It's still going around, but not as bad as it was back then. So they're kind of like helping me so I don't have to go through the same struggles that they had to go through, and opening and trying to open me up to the broader world and different people that I could get assistance and help with and mentoring me throughout my life. It's kind of like why I got in the Tuskegee Airmen chapter was through my grandfather and through my dad, because they were both involved in that chapter for some time. And so that's how I was able to get involved with that and wanting to just do African American studies, but also history a little bit.
Well, I mean, I just really love that that you're able to follow your passions and and everything. And I'll have to ask too. So from where the present moment that we are right now, of course we have a lot of technological innovations that have been skyrocketing, especially a culmination of the past several decades of work from from computers becoming commonplace to the internet to social media, now even with artificial intelligence and so many more technologies simultaneously just coming together. But I also believe that right now we're also recognizing, like as you're studying, the importance of diverse voices within the workforce. And so, what do you believe is the importance of where we are right now as we even look into the future?
Well, I would say when it comes to technology, I love the initiatives that we are providing when it comes to making sure that we have things that are accessible. I feel like that's a good thing that now we're putting those into certifications for certain buildings so we can have accessibility for people with mobile disabilities. Even the museum, they're even incorporating um, in their exhibits ways to help the impaired having opportunities to learn the history, because some of them, like examples, could be people who are not able to see, so they provide headsets or even people braille and even objects for them to touch. So they create models of the airplanes that they're not able to see, so they can understand what's in front of them. So that's a good thing that we're doing. Initiatives like those and making sure that we're accounting for everyone is what we need to continue doing, so each person can have an opportunity. And that's even the same for the workforce. We need to continue that commitment in having these programs so we can have greater diversity in the STEM fields. Because with this, you have different perspectives and understandings of how we can not only fix the problem, but maybe from their background, what methods would they want to produce to help provide a solution. It's just very important to have diverse teams in the STEM field and like such as engineering. Um, Therefore, we can create technology where that's not going to be such as like the soap dispenser incident where someone with a darker skin tone they couldn't the soap wouldn't come out because of that. So with those diverse teams and having people accounting for that, we're now able to have that accessible technology.
Yeah, and I think you just hit on such a great point, with that example as well. And even for instance, like Google was working a few years ago, like with phone cameras, even because a lot of times, the lenses weren't designed for, like you said, like for all skin tones, and that unfortunately certain shots would be a lot darker than they should be with the exposure. And so sometimes it requires, diverse voices within the operating area, within the engineering and design side, to say, hey, this you know it's not really all created equal, and a lot of times it's not even intentional. Sometimes it's just truly a blind side, that we're not able to see and understand, because we may not have those experiences.
That's a really good point. You know, even another example could be with the Apple ID on your phone when you're scanning your face. Sometimes they don't recognize the person's face if they're like, say, like in a dark area, but also with their darker skin tone, it doesn't recognize that either. So seeing those errors and where we can improve upon is very important. I mean, we've been doing that for years, but having those certain situations happen is a way where it doesn't happen again, so we can have that push for inclusion in technology. And just it's just that's why it's important we have individuals of different backgrounds and knowledges, so we can have that technology that advances us into the far future.
Absolutely. And what would you say that your personal hopes are for, the future of technology in your research that you want to do, coming within the next few years, and then even for yourself, what do you plan to do within, these next few years to come?
Well, one of the hopes that I have is that we continue to help with the environmental prospects and aspects, uh, creating technology that helps us have a better environment for our planet. Because I'm sure you've seen on the news how from different, excuse me, we have different environmental disasters that have happened due to um, us not creating better standards for sustainability, for um, having cleaner systems and technology. And so I hope to focus on that in some aspect in the aerospace field, helping create technology that reduces gas consumption. Um, maybe we can look at different materials. Possibly they're doing that right now with one of the Boeing aircraft. Um, with everything's going on with Boeing, but with the aircraft they're doing revolutionary work with creating a carbon fiber wings. We're using more recyclable material instead of material that is not as good for the environment. And even with these wings, they're able to fly a lot. They're able to glide a little bit. So that way, that also reduces gas consumption. So that was kind of one of the interesting things I would love to do in the future, as well as wanting to complete, hoping to help with the space debris that is encircling the planet. That's been a growing issue for a number of years now. What are some alternatives that we can do to help mitigate this issue? And because if that continues to grow like that, it will impact our space missions. It already has been doing that. Um, so we already have space debris impacting the ISS, um, and even some of it has been coming down to Earth. It hasn't. That's not a major issue yet, but we don't want it to get there. So that's kind of what I hope to also do. But also when it comes to environmental engineering, we need to make sure we're doing environmental engineering that is that is not hindering underprivileged communities. That is also a various interest of mine, is making sure that we have that's kind of where the DI aspect comes in. Like, we're helping the environment, but like we need to make sure we're not overstepping on underprivileged communities, and we're basically like destroying them and not helping them. So that's where we need to like communicate with these companies and figure out what we can do to not only help create a better environment, but making sure we're not going back essentially to the way we were and not being good to our fellow man essentially.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't agree more. And I love that you have really hammered in the point too of, like I said, the importance of, of DEI. Because I'm not sure if everyone fully 100% understands it, but I think that you've just been able to speak about it so well, and the importance of it, and why, and why we need these resources, especially within 2024.
Yeah, it's just we can't go back now. We just have to keep on moving forward. We need to keep pushing these initiatives. So yeah, just basically we don't want to get back to where we were. We've had people like Captain John Tuskegee get us to this point, so we don't want to put all the work that they put in just to go back. So we just need to keep their legacy alive by doing these opportunities for underrepresented individuals, so we can have this technology that's inclusive, but also making sure that we're keeping up a legacy to our forefathers before us.
Absolutely, and yeah, I had a chance to personally meet and interact with, um, amazing hidden figure, Dr. Christine Darden, a few years ago, and I mean, it was just such an honor being able to hear, from her firsthand experience of how she was able to navigate, the workforce, work her way up uh, through the NACA, and then which became NASA, and
Engineers call it NACA. They is what I've heard with at the Aerospace Museum. They kind of despise that name because it kind of they see me as like a joke a little bit. Well, they people essentially joked him, saying, "Oh, you guys are just you're NACA
yeah,
people." So yeah, but yeah, I do. Yes, that's amazing that you're able to meet with her. That's just yeah, being able to meet those people and have that opportunity is just amazing because like they play such a major role in what we have today.
100%. And it's extraordinary to also hear not just about some of the, these amazing groundbreakers, trailblazers in their professional lives, but also in their personal lives as well, and what they were able to do and accomplish, and what they did, that wasn't, always spoken about, like what they did in their personal life, like for instance, like their journey of even going to school or going back to school, getting further education, what their parents told them. And I think even being able to hear from you, I definitely, like, I have no doubt about it that you are going to be one of those people that also like continues that legacy of, of continuing amazing work and research. And I'm just so excited to see, what you are going to do and continue to do. Uh, and I say that to say that, yeah, I definitely believe in hearing like the full picture too. And so before we end up going to, to begin a part of the closing segments for my shows, I wanted to ask and circle back to what you're saying at the beginning of how Katherine Johnson had actually visited, the church that you attend and sing at. So how long have you actually been a part of, your church, and what is your, a part of your involvement in it?
So essentially, I didn't get to explain it further, but so basically, our choir, our main church is St. Augustine, but we sang at her church, which is Carver, located in Newport News, Virginia, and she used to essentially attend services there. Even though we didn't get to sing for her over there, but it's just interesting learning about that she used to attend that service, that church that I was singing at. So it was just great looking at that experience. Well, getting a firsthand from members who I was able to talk to and learn about kind of what she was like a little bit. Not like too much, but it was just amazing to learn about the person that I was doing research about in middle school for a little project. I got to actually go to the church, the place that she worshipped in, and so that was just amazing. And I did get to see her when they were gifting the bench to her at the Hampton Air and Space Museum during that ceremony. So that was also great to see her in that aspect.
That's absolutely outstanding. And I'm so glad that you were able, I mean, to have that connection a little bit, even if you didn't get a chance to, like, like maybe go up and ask them the questions. I'm sure that you would have, definitely have loved to ask, but even being able to be that close, and in the fact that so many of these amazing, NASA icons, like, lived in our area, like, how does it make you feel?
It's amazing. It's an amazing experience. Like we even have a Tuscarean that I got to meet at a Tuscarean camp. That's alive now, living in Chesapeake. You can search him up on Google. Uh, he he's still alive and well, and he's just teaching us about. He was basically an aviation mechanic for the Tuscarean. He told us about like his experiences, and so learning from people like them is just great. But even because he's one of the last of them left. He's essentially the last one left in the in the Hampton Roads area. Everyone else has long passed, or recently passed. Apologies, recently passed, and it's good to help and interact with them so they they feel great and they want to um, continue helping out our younger generation. It's good for our younger generation to meet with them and understand without their help, we wouldn't be where we are today.
100%, 100%. And yeah, I know, even I think back to when I was younger. I think there were a couple times where we had retired Tuskegee Airmen that had visited my church, and I had a chance to get a picture with. I'll have to go find some of those pictures, but I mean, it's like you get to meet someone who was involved, like, in such important part of our history. And I mean, I have been absolutely loving this conversation, David. And I mean, being able to speak about this, reflect, and even look towards not just our future, but even your future as a researcher and a scholar within this field. I'm just so excited for you, and all the adventures you've already had and will continue to have.
Thank you, and I'm also hoping everything goes well for you as well. It's just learning about your experience in Virginia Space Consortium um, is just very interesting to me that you got to have that as a as I say, like with social media a little bit with media. Is that correct?
Yeah, so yeah, I was a intern for for their VEST program for 2 years, and I got to do a sort of unofficial media stuff during, well, I guess technically both years, but especially in person, being able to help document that, and and help write some stories for their blog, and then even advocate for them over the years. It's just been such an honor. And even, I mean, well, everything I do is such an honor, but especially knowing that students such as yourself are able to gain valuable STEM education, especially early on in high school, because of programs like that. And I know you were involved with one as well.
Yes, I was involved with it as a high school senior during the time of COVID, actually. So it was a little bit different than what you would have. Not the people that are here now are in the program, but it was just wonderful for me to, um, you know, kind of get a feel of what a college course would kind of be like as a engineering student. That's kind of like like show me like kind of the ropes of how they're laid out because that was like one of my first dual enrollment classes that I took. So it was just interesting to learn how they work and how they function, and it was a great preparation for what it was going to be like in college. Uh, and just kind of like I guess it was a little bit of wake up call for me, but not really because I'm already I try to be proficient as I can already, but just kind of seeing how to manage everything from taking that class it was a really good learning experience.
Yeah, and actually, could you remind me which of the space rank class or courses have did you complete when you were in high school?
So I in high school for Denby wise, I did a um, intro to aerospace technology. Then I did a couple of I did a maintenance course in Denby High School. I did another aerospace technology course. We got more into the I guess the engineering aspect of it with CAD. So that's kind of what also got me involved, interested in CAD, but also influenced me and helped me prepare for some of the stuff that I'm learning in college. And then for also in that Virginia Space Grant program, the VATS program, um, it was kind of like I guess you could say it's like an intro to aerospace technology course. It's kind of like listed a little bit differently on the transcript, but that's how I saw it as, because basically we looked into some of the advanced physics a little bit, learned a little bit about how to write up an ethics, basically a case study report, and kind of like looking at old case studies on how we can improve some of the disasters that have happened, but also looking at mission planning. So that kind of goes to some of the classes that I'm interested maybe in taking in the future, but also um, looking at what was this? Basically, intro to design. How do you format a engineering design? And they just went over like the basics. So that was pretty interesting to figure out how you need to have things to scale, what goes into a diagram of that sort, a blueprint of that sort. So I'm glad I got to get those fundamentals while I could while in high school.
Well, I'm so glad that that you were to able to do that, and that you're continuing just your amazing journey and path that you are currently on. And yeah, and even though, like I said, that I know that you didn't have too much time, I'm glad that we were able to to have this conversation. And I think it's just such a like a perfect time for it. I'm so glad that that one we had a chance to meet a few months ago, but that I'm so glad that your internship went well with the Smithsonian, and that you're just continuing to to strive. And I've just been, like I said, just so loving this conversation.
Yes, I'm hoping like in the future everything will go accordingly. I know it will. I know my family and also um, my religion will help me get to the goal, like keeping the faith. So just being able to have all those factors and people that are there who want to help me, I know I'm gonna do great things.
I am very confident that you will do, let's say, great and amazing, things, transformative. And I will say too, is there anything that we did not have a chance? I know we discussed a lot, but is there anything that we didn't have a chance to discuss, within our conversation, or any questions for me before we begin heading to a close for this episode?
Well, I was kind of like interested in learning about, or if like I guess for you, I have questions is um, how big is social media um, with aerospace? Like people don't take history for granted too in the aerospace field like as much. Like they look more into like the science and engineering aspect, but it's also kind of the same thing for the arts and media. Uh, how big of a role does that play now? Because it didn't play as much of a role like back then. Like in the '70s, yes, recordings of different missions happening, but how much of it is a big role now? Do you think that we have it, or have you seen it playing a role in the aerospace field?
Oh, this is such a fascinating question. So, ooh, yeah, I would say that it's so interesting when you think about the yeah, I think the mutual sort of partnership between aerospace and and social media, and even documentation, or rather the not necessarily partnership, but the interactions that they have, because I think they are just they're so interconnected. Because if you really think about it, most of even like the modern internet, and the rise of personal computers goes back to the space race. We were trying to make new computers to be one of the first ones in space, and sure enough, that directly and indirectly both led to even the modern internet that we have. And so to allow us to have even this conversation, online. And so yeah. And in terms of even, like social media, for instance, like NASA has and many NASA missions have so many successful and extraordinary pages like on Instagram and across social media that you're able to see and interact with. A lot of them combine history to learning about facts to, letting you know like what missions are coming out. And I think when you're able to have those educational resources at your disposal, I mean, possibilities are just so endless. But it's interesting that you mentioned social media aspect too. Specifically, is that we have so many new channels and avenues for communication. I teach public speaking now, and as a fun fact, and so we speak about channels of communication. Well, back in like the late 1960s and 1970s, in terms of TV, you had largely like free channels, and so when a major like when the moonwalk happened, for instance, and when you had major breaking news in terms of the space race, you'd see it on all free channels. And even if it was just on one, you have a 33% chance that you are going to catch it if you have the TV on. But now with so many avenues, you have less of a possibility to, I mean, to be as informed, about these amazing, extraordinary discoveries than you did. But if you're interested in it, you have so much more information you can gather. I mean, you can do a deep dive into just one mission, read a giant Wikipedia page, just dedicated to just one topic. So I feel like information now is both scattered but more readily available. It's just the question of, are we going to use it? Are we going to utilize it? Are we going to make use of all of this information we have now? But like saying, but tying it all back together to aerospace and aviation, this is what the internet and everything, that's what it was partially made for. So, like, that's really why we decide to even do much of this, is to be the first ones to do it. So it's almost like poetic in a sense to even do research for this, knowing that decades ago this would have been the dream, to have communication so readily available and information just that we can search up, whereas all computer resources were going for like one math equation back then. But yet with the computers back then, we could go to space. So just to see what we could do now, possibilities are endless.
And just as it's like kind of like a similar but a little different question, it's as like a person like yourself and also kind of like me, like pushing for that diversity, because you're kind of in a technological field that yourself, being like in media, and like how important do you see that as a person of color, um, and being in that field?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great question, and yeah, to me it feels like this is the perfect time. Like, I mean, for me, like, I see where I am right now, like within the communication field, but also like with my love of technology, my love of STEM, that I'm able to have like the best of all, like of all of these different worlds. Like I love the communication field for that. Is that I can be in multiple places at once, but also that adding to what you were saying too, is that for me myself, I mean, seeing what what people were able to do, even like in the past, like I said, when meeting with Dr. Darden, hearing her personal story of how she wasn't going to let anyone stop her from getting her education, and that and here she's like one of the most brilliant minds of of NASA. And when I met her, met her at NASA Langley, like when I met her in person, and so many people were like walking by and wanting to go get pictures with her, and so and I actually had her sign my personal notebook, um, and so it's extraordinary to see uh, everything that she was able to do. And so for me, I mean, having used this podcast to speak with so many amazing people, to include yourself, my 149th person that I've spoken to. I mean, you know, and to see everyone's personal stories and ambitions, like it's it's amazing to see. Uh, yeah, I mean, to see what we're able to do and accomplish. And I hope that I was able to somewhat answer the question.
Yes, yes, it did. Apologies for the background noise again. Um, Hopefully that it's able to get cut. But yes, thank you so much for talking about your experience,
Of
um,
course.
and being able to meet with you again. It's just such an amazing experience for me.
Yeah, I know, and the honor is all mine. Like I said, to speak with you, and definitely continue to keep, like I said, in touch. And I just am so excited to like continue to keep up with you and catch up with you soon.
Yes, I hope to get to call with you. I would love to like see a few like months from now, like how everything's going, and with I know you tell me about the new positions and everything that you've been getting. So I just love to hear how everything's going for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and before we close out, I did want to ask for anyone who is tuning in, watching, and listening. So, where are the best places if anyone wants to reach out to you and hear more about your research or your personal story? Where are the best places for them to find you?
So I am free on LinkedIn, as well as uh, if they want to reach out to me via my school email. I'm not going to make my personal one, but school email, I do dmorg018 at od.edu. I am also on Instagram. I have a school account on Instagram, but also a personal account. So feel free. They can also reach me on there as well. Uh, so that is the best. Those are some of the best ways you're going to be able to contact me, and I'll be able to look over, especially LinkedIn. I'm able to get the notifications almost immediately on my phone.
That's amazing. And yeah, and I guess my last two-parter question, I'll start with part one. So, yeah, to end this out. So, for the first part of that, so what does it mean to you to be able to tell your story, here on the podcast? You've spoken about, the, continuing the legacy, but what does this mean, for you personally?
I I'm just, I guess, being able to express my story, express myself about this, and kind of getting this experience about being on a podcast. It's like this is actually my first one being on here, so it's just interesting to see this perspective, um, from this lens. I guess I'm just so it's great that I'm able to get this experience now, and you know I'll be able to continue to grow when I'm continuing to tell my stories and speak with individuals. It's just amazing, that you let me on to this and just had this opportunity about express about ODU, but also about personally about myself and about my family a little bit.
I absolutely love that. And it's just been such an honor to speak with you. And this leads to the final, the final question is so to end out this episode, David, if you're able to let us know whether it's a inspirational thought, life lesson, or whatever the case may be, the floor is all yours.
Oh well, I'm gonna leave you with one that my dad always told me, but he also got it from Star Wars. Do or do not. There is no try, from Yoda. So, yes, if you don't go out and actually do it, you just think about doing it. It's not gonna get done. So do it. The worst can that someone can say is no. So that is my quote to you.
I absolutely love that. Like I said, thank you so much, David, for coming on, for speaking with me, and for staying in contact over these last few months. And I'm excited to, like I said, continue to stay in contact, as we continue to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your weekend and evening.
You as well. For those tuning in, thank you so much as always for tuning into the Tansson Talks show. I always appreciate your support and continue tuning every week as we continue on our mission to bring people together. I'll see you next time. Take care.